Our next speaker will not need much introduction to many of you. Dr. Christine Sexton, she happens to be my boss. She's the head of Corporate Information and Computing Services at the University of Sheffield. I've worked with her for 20 years. We've done a lot of projects together. She's now retiring, sadly, so we just don't know what we're going to do without her. But she's going to give us her valedictory presentation on how really she's moved from vision to embed in our department over the course of 20 years, I hope. So
Thanks, Simon. Right. So, as Simon said, I actually went to the University of Sheffield 42 years ago, and I've worked there for 36 years. And in, let me just check, 30 days, 24 minutes and 47 seconds, I will be retiring, not that I'm counting or anything. So what I've been asked to do actually several times over the last few weeks is take a look back, really, rather than a look forward, and look at some of the things that have happened over the last 20 years. And what I'm going to try and do today is actually not look back over 20 years. I'm actually going to look back over 60 years, and some of the things that have happened to me, and some of the things I've learnt from that, and some of the things I hope you might find useful for you as well, in terms of you moving forward. I am between you and the bar, I do know that, and actually, more importantly, I'm between me and the bar, which is even more important. So I'm going to try out, there's a lot of slides, I'm going to go through them quite quickly. Don't worry if I don't pick out, everything on them. So, we're going to start. Oh, sorry, that's me with a beer in my hand. How strange. So I'm going to start where I was born. I was born in a very sleepy little market town in Retford. You don't need to know about that, apart from my curly hair even then. And the most exciting thing that happened to me as a child was my mother's sister, my auntie, married a farmer. And I spent most of my childhood on a farm. I learnt lots of things on that farm. Some of them will become apparent later on. I learnt to hate chickens, hate them, unless they've got sage and onion with them. They are just horrible things. I learnt to feed lovely little lambs, but more importantly, I learnt to love cows. Now, I was telling this story 2 days ago to a departmental meeting, and I was saying how much I thought cows are wonderful, and it suddenly dawned on me there was a member of my staff in the audience who's just come back to work after 4 months off, having been trampled by a herd of cows while he was out walking, so I sort of had to temper that a bit. My first pet was a cow. She was called Christine. She was a calf when I got her, and I looked after her for 10 years, and I used to ride her. You're going to learn, actually, during this talk, why I'm as weird as I am. But I used to ride Christine. My uncle used to put me on top of her, and I used to ride her back from the fields down for milking. And then I went to school, clearly, and the reason I put these pictures on, one is because I was looking for some old pictures of me at school, and I found this one. And don't they look as though they come from a knitting pattern? This is my biology teacher and my physics teacher. I just thought that was amazing. And if you want to know which one I am on here, there'll be a competition later. But on this picture, that's me at the top doing my DV award. And what you can't see is they're all wearing a beanie hat. In that beanie hat is a stoat skin. And it's a stoat that I skinned myself. It was dead. And cured the skin. And the reason I showed you that is because my background is as a scientist, and I got really into science at school. I had a fabulous biology teacher who encouraged us to pick up roadkill. And we used to take roadkill into school, and if it was small, like this is a mole, we used to boil it, skin it, boil it, cure the skin, and wire the bones together to actually make a skeleton, so that the kids who came along later in the school could learn from it. One day, me and my friend Sally were walking to school, and we found a badger by the side of the road. So, we put it in a bag, took it to school, said to the biology teacher, we found this badger. And she said, it's going to be a bit big to boil, I think. Let's bury it. So we buried it in the school playing fields, in the hope that when we dug it up a year later, it had decomposed, and it hadn't. It was fairly revolting. But it was that made me really, really into science, and particularly biology. So I applied to go to university, and weirdly, I went for an interview at Sheffield University to do anatomy. I don't know why I wanted to do anatomy. I think it was something to do with the roadkill. But I went to anatomy, and the professor who was interviewing me tried to put me off. I mean, these days, it's like, come to university. First of all, he said, have you got a cat? I said, yeah. This is actually my current cat, George. What's a talk without a picture of a cat? And I said, yeah. He said, why? And he said, well, if you do realise if you come to this come to university to do anatomy, you will have to do experiments on cats. I think you did, but anyway. And then he took me for a walk around the dissecting room. That's the DR at Sheffield, as it was then, where it was just full of, you know, half-cut-up bodies. And I'm absolutely convinced he was trying to make me pass out or something, but I didn't. And I got a place to do anatomy. Within 6 weeks of starting anatomy, I decided this was not for me and I was going to drop it. And I developed an overriding love of genetics, which I still have. And I did a degree, a PhD and a postdoc actually in genetics. And that's me. I just thought I'd put that one up there. Me as a student, I think I was 19 there, committing the cardinal sin of double denim. I have a denim shirt and a denim skirt on, and a duffel coat. That's what you wore in 1976. But the bizarre thing when I found this photograph is that's actually my department in the background. I've got a bottle of wine in my hand. Look at that.
Interrupt you a moment, your microphone needs to just catch on your necklace.
Do you want to take my necklace off?
No, it's okay, I'll just leave this.
Anything else off? No? I hadn't noticed, sorry. Oh.
Okay.
I daren't move now. Is it all right? Okay, we'll assume it's going to be all right from now on. Right, I got to it. Ooh, yeah, the bottle of wine in my hand. Anyway, then I did a postdoc, and this is just to prove that there was a time when I was a real scientist, and they did let me touch machines. They don't now in my current job. They don't even give me the key to the computer centre and the data centre. But I did used to play with machines. I think that is a scintillation counter. I don't really know what it did. And I did once write a paper, and that's it. And I don't understand even the words in it now. Never mind the paragraphs. So then, after I'd done a postdoc, I thought I ought to get a job, really, a real job. So there was a job going in those days in something called the administration. And I had no idea what it was, but I thought I'd apply for it. And I ended up getting the job, and I ended up working in the administration, now called professional services, as a committee secretary. Now, what I did for 3 years, I think it was about 3 years, was I was a committee secretary, and I looked after 32 committees. So all I did was put agendas together, write reports, write minutes, and start again. That was such a skill, okay, and it has really stayed with me. And the people from Sheffield who know if they ever give me a set of minutes or report that I get sorry, Rachel's nodding at me, I don't even look down here. You know, I correct the tense. You know, minutes are written in the past tense, reports are written in the present tense. You know, agendas have to be set out in a certain way, and I have never forgotten it. That's actually one of the committees I used to look after in 1983. And more importantly, we did it all without any technology. There was no backspace on a typewriter, okay? On a typewriter, you use Tipex. If you made a mistake, you Tipex it out. Cut and paste, that's what cut and paste was. It was a pair of scissors and Scotch tape, magic tape, not sellotape. If I made a mistake in a sentence that my secretary would type up on a typewriter, she would get a pair of scissors and she would cut round the sentence and change it and move it around on the A3 normally sheets of paper, because then you photocopied them down to A4, so you more, you know, manipulate them easier. And she would not sellotape them, Scotch tape them. Why do you use Scotch tape, not sellotape? Sellotape leaves a black line when you photocopy, okay? So you use Scotch tape. So that's what cut and paste came from. Post-it notes, I remember post-it notes being invented. Somebody walked into my office one day with this yellow bit of paper and stuck it on my desk and went, look at this, it comes off. Seriously. And the person I was sharing an office with looked at it and said, that'll never catch on, for heaven's sake. Seriously, what's wrong with a paperclip is what she said. And we had the first fax machine in the university. Quickly followed by somebody buying a second, because we soon realised one fax machine was actually no good. So we had a second one bought, and I remember spending the entire day, two of us, faxing pictures to each other across the office, because it was such a novelty. I'm so pleased that Sam said he used to be a dancer. And some of you will know from my Twitter handle, my name is Clog Chris. I'm called Clog Chris because about this time, this is about 1982, I took up clog dancing. And I've done, you know, that's Northwest Clog, Step Clog, sword dancing. And a learning point from this is, you know, when you talk about Morris dance or anything like that in this country, most people will laugh. It's a bit of a joke, really. And my learning from this is it doesn't matter. Just be yourself and do whatever you want to do, because actually it can be really cool. That picture at the bottom, I don't know if you can see it, there's a line there. That's the equator. This is in Ecuador, and my friend Jane and I are dancing on either side of the equator, one in the northern hemisphere and one in the southern hemisphere. My clog dancing has taken me to some pretty cool places. So, you know, be yourself, do what you want to do. After the job doing committees and stuff, I went to work in a medical school. Well, several things I learned from medical school. Not only had not only had post-it notes not caught on, paper clips hadn't. The person who was in the job before me pinned sheaves of paper together with long pins, and she was left-handed, so they all went upwards. So if you put your hand in the filing cabinet, it came out dripping with blood. Seriously. The only computer in the medical school was behind a locked door. You had to actually ask for a key to get in there and look at it. There was a PC connected to the network, and you could get through to the student system on it, but you had to ask for the key. And another thing that I soon learnt was part of my job in the medical school was every year at Christmas, the students would decorate the Christmas tree in the foyer with condoms. And it was my job to remove them. And the pin came in very handy, I can tell you. I did some pretty cool stuff in the medical school, and I got to watch live operations, I got to watch open heart surgery, and I got to work with some wonderful people, but I had a hit list. And the hit list was all of those students I had watched graduate, who if I ever come round in an A&E department or a ward and they're looking at me, I will ask to be transferred. Okay? And I still can remember the names of some of those medical students, thinking, I cannot believe they are now doctors. Right. We'll get on to the next sort of 20 years now. I'll just have a drink. So, in 1996, the university went through quite a big restructure. And it brought together several bits of administrative computing to form something called corporate information. This is in January 96, and I was appointed director of it. Halfway through that year, we merged with academic computing services to form the department we are now. It was Department of Corporate Information, Academic Computing Services. They put the two together and we became Corporate Information and Computing Services, or KICS, which is what you'll see a lot of in the next few slides. So that's what happened, and because we are 20 years old, we decided a few weeks ago to have an anniversary celebration, and we've produced this wonderful exhibition. I don't know if you can see, there's a board for each year telling you what we did in the department in that year, but also what was happening in the world. It was quite a popular exhibition, and I'm actually going to use some of these boards. Don't worry, I'm not going to go through all 20 and read out all 10 bullet points of each one, but I'm just going to use them to just sort of look at some of the things that happened then and how things have changed actually now. So in 1996, I have to say the biggest thing that happened to me was I turned green and got a black pointy hat and a broomstick, because I was clearly the Wicked Witch, having to pull two very different departments together. Admin computing had a particular culture. It was quite project-based. It worked to time scales, and it delivered, critical systems such as payroll and student systems. The academic computing service saw itself as much more of a research-based computing service. It didn't have an organisational structure. It didn't work to deadlines. Project management was something you'd never heard of, and I have to say it was a tricky time, bringing two different cultures together. I'd like to say I've achieved it recently in 20 years, but no, I learnt an awful lot about managing different cultures, and I also learned that sometimes you do need a broomstick. So these are some of the boards that we produced. So in 1996, I think I'm just going to blow up a couple of them. We were developing a remote access service. You couldn't get in 96 the systems unless you were actually on campus. We had a campus-wide information system. Does anybody remember those? A QUIS? That was the forerunner of websites. It was managed by the library, and it was just a list of links. So we developed a new website based on tiny icons, because you couldn't have pictures on websites because they took too long to download. But the thing I want to point out is that I still think this is the best thing I've ever done over 20 years, is that we decided in 96 that the web was the future. It was the way we were going to deliver all of our services. They were all going to be platform independent. They were all going to be delivered through a browser. A lot of that had got to do with the fact that I was a Macintosh user and the deputy director at the time was a PC user. So the challenge was that any system had to work on both, and a browser was the obvious way to do it. But it was a fundamental decision that we took then, and really it's been the basis of everything we've done since. In '97, I thought this was interesting. I don't know how much of this you can read, but this is when the domain name for Google was registered in '97. And there's a couple of things I wanted to show you. We formed a help desk in '97, which was bringing together different points of contact. So again, that was quite early on. We decided that was the right way to go. But we also wrote an application to allow students to access their own student information through the web and update it. So they could go in and change their addresses in '97. And when we did the exhibition that I was talking about recently, students came and looked around it, and there were students looking, it was the board there, and I heard one of them say, that was written in '97. It doesn't look any different now. It doesn't. And the developer who wrote it, we happened to be in the room. So I went and fetched him, and I said, George, the student says his system doesn't look any different now, and he said, well, it doesn't, so I've not touched it since. There was no need to, it works, it still works. But again, that was sort of, you know, quite a big thing for us, was to actually allow students to use a web browser to access things. In '98, I'm going to have to look at this one, because I can't remember with some of those why I've picked out certain years, so I'll just have to look here. Yeah, this was interesting. So Apple, oh, sugar, sorry. Let me go back, not the right way, '98. Yeah, Apple unveiled the iMac, that was quite a big thing. And in '99, right, the interesting thing about that one is this thing here, the Y2K problem. So I don't know how many of you remember the fact that it was predicted that, you know, basically at midnight, that the world was going to come to an end, planes would drop out of the sky, and it was my job to make sure that in Sheffield things carried on working. And I took a paper to our audit committee. I put this up because it sort of vaguely amuses me. And if you can read it, the opening sentence says, the year 2000 problem with PC hardware is not great, because it wasn't. With most PCs you could sort it out. It was a simple change. And I got absolutely roasted at this audit committee. Really, you know, you don't know what you're talking about, you're talking rubbish, this is ridiculous, you've got to throw all your PCs away, you've got to spend millions of pounds on brand new PCs. And it suddenly dawned on me that everybody on audit committee, they're all lay members, they're not people from the university, they were all business people whose IT directors were telling them that they needed millions of pounds of extra budget because all the PCs needed throwing away. And there was me telling them they didn't. So I was clearly wrong. I wasn't, by the way. I was clearly right. And of course, in year 2000, there's a reason for this picture, planes didn't fall out of the sky and everything worked. Now, I've given this sort of a variant of this talk. This is the third time I've done it to different audiences. And this particular slide was put in for Rugged, who are the Russell Group IT directors. And the reason for putting this slide in is that when I first joined Rugged in 2000, it was actually made up of grumpy old men, which is what I thought summed that up. But the reason I've left it in for you is that the person who chaired Rugged at the time was this guy. Most of you won't know him. He's a guy called Roland Rosner. He was IT director at UCL at the time, and he was one of the 3 people who invented Janet. And for those of you who think Janet was called Janet because it's the Joint Academic Network, you are wrong. The reason it is called Janet is that that was the name of Roland's secretary. And while they were working on this project, they needed a name to call this thing they were working on. And jokingly, Roland said, let's call it Janet, because he thought that was fun. And they retrofitted Joint Academic Network to it afterwards. That is absolute honest truth. Peter Tinson's nodding at the back. I've heard this story absolutely from everybody around at the time. So I just thought I'd tell you that, because, you know, why not? It's interesting. Where are we going next? 2001, okay, in 2001, right, the iPod came out, but look at this up here. Undergraduates are allocated 5 megabytes of file store, postgraduates 8, and staff 10. 10 meg of file store. We thought that was really generous. Couldn't understand why people kept coming to us and saying they wanted more. By next year, by 2002, we'd realised perhaps they did need a bit more, and students were getting 20. by that time. But the most exciting thing that happened in 2002 was I got married. And some people ask me how I have coped. Sorry, there was H's and not H's there. I was finding that difficult. In working in a very male-dominated environment for most of my life, so in medicine and in IT. Well, when I met my first husband, who's not this one, this is my current husband, as I like to call him, to keep him on his toes. When I met my first husband, he already had 3 boys. We got married and we had 2 boys. We then got divorced and I met my current husband who had 4 boys. So this is 6 of the boys at our wedding. So I am actually mother or stepmother to 9 boys. So I have had no problem at all with dealing with boys. What I have a problem with actually is dealing with girls. Anyway, so I thought I'd throw that in. Where are we going to now? So, 2003, what happened in 2003? Apple launched the iTunes Music Store and Skype was released in 2003 and my network manager immediately disabled it. I'm not using that on my network. And we had quite a lot of argument at the time about, you know, systems and what people could do with them, particularly peer-to-peer systems as Skype was considered. But again, the most important thing I think on there is that button there which says Muse was launched. Muse is our portal. It was an online portal, completely browser-based, to all of our services, as many as we could make them, and it was completely personalised back then. So you can see here it says things like reading lists. So the system knew what modules we were doing. It went and looked at the timetable in system. It brought you up your timetable. It brought up the reading lists for your module. And the only way we could do that is because we decided to go web-based. And, actually, I forgot to point this out in a bubble, 2 years before that, we decided that we would move to single sign-on to everything as well. So we're quite proud that we managed to do that in 2003. Other thing that happened in 2003, this is quite funny, paedophile scandal rocked the university, and you can see here, students call for Kick's head Dr. Sexton to resign. That was quite interesting. I was away at the time, didn't even know this was going on. It said in there something like she's refused all requests to resign. I've not had any, which was quite funny, really. This goes down in history. Steel Press was the student newspaper. It was the only newspaper to be printed, and it was distributed around the university, left in piles for students to pick up, and within an hour every copy had gone. Because, without my knowledge, but the university had threatened to sue the student union. So all these copies were picked up and trashed, and there's only 2 left, and that's one of them. It was all a complete misunderstanding, just before you worry that I really was allowing paedophiles onto the university premises. It was a complete made-up, absolutely and utterly made-up story. But, you know, I've been on the front page of Steel Press many times. Not the Daily Mail yet. Hoping to avoid that one. So, in 2004, this is quite interesting, Google announced Gmail, and most people took it as an April Fool's joke. Oh, it's true, they announced it on the 1st of April 2004, and people thought they were joking, which I thought was quite funny. And, more importantly, this one here, it says Unicef, which was our wireless network, was launched. And I thought this might be just interesting to show you how wireless has changed. So in 2004, you needed a web key, you needed VPN, and it gave you 54 megabits per second of wireless access. It's gradually changed, as you can see. We've gone through various, putting Wi-Fi in student bedrooms, we've got reciprocal Wi-Fi in local hospitals, we hope we've got Wi-Fi everywhere, and now it's 16 gigabytes per second, 5,000 access points, and the interesting thing, I think, is 2,000 unique devices. We only have 25,000 students, so, you know, the number of devices people are connecting to the networks is enormous. Why did I put 2005 up here? Who knows? There must have been something. Oh yes, sorry, YouTube. I thought it was interesting. First video was uploaded to YouTube in 2005. And look how that's changed. The real thing that happened in 2005 was my departmental team won the university tug of war. We were called, I don't think you can see it on the T-shirts, Kick's ass. And the T-shirts had a donkey and Kicks on it. I thought that was brilliant. The reason for putting this up is that one of the things I hope to leave as a legacy when I go is a department that's incredibly sociable. If there's anything happening in the university, we have a team, at least one. We had Global Corporate Challenge recently. We had 4 teams in it, and we were in the top 3 with 2 of them. We're not competitive at all. And we have Christmas parties, and we have barbecues in the summer, and I really do believe that, you know, people that play together work together better. And if you can get people socialising, they actually work together much better. So we do try. I've tried to make the department as social as possible. I don't look at the people from the department who are in the audience at the moment in case they're shaking their heads. Oh no, Rachel, I can see Rachel nodding, so that's something. So in 2006, Twitter was launched. So, you know, big thing there when Twitter was launched. And in 2006, so the other big thing that happened there was that's my eldest son, Daniel, who was graduating, and the reason for putting that up is Daniel suffers very badly from dyspraxia, has really struggled at school. I never even thought he'd get GCSEs and then A-levels, then he got a degree. So that's a really, really, really proud mum there. And the reason for that is, you know, everybody has potential. Everybody's got potential to do something. And, you know, you really have to bring out the best in people. So very proud there. 2007, we opened the Information Commons, which I'll mention in a minute, and it says up here, I feel really embarrassed about this, Chris Sexton posted the first entry in her blog, which I did, and I kept it going religiously until earlier this year. And earlier this year I stopped blogging, and I keep thinking I ought to at least post a goodbye one before I go. We did open the Information Commons, and I've gone. And that was a fantastic thing for me. I'd show the picture of my son. This was almost like Kicks in the library, because it was a joint thing, having a baby. We worked on that for years. It's a fantastic learning space, jointly designed, jointly run, jointly managed. And again, a fabulous example of how you can work together. We didn't have to change our organisational structure to produce this building, and we haven't had to change our organisational structure to run it. KIC staff and library staff work alongside each other in this building, and it doesn't matter if you walk to a counter and you ask a question, you don't know who you're asking the question of. They could be KICs or library staff. If they don't know the answer, they'll find somebody who does, but you know, we run that jointly. We haven't had to change anything. Between 2009 and 2011, we implemented Google Apps for Education. We're a completely Google site now, and again, I think that's one of the best decisions we took. Apologies to all those Microsoft 365 sites, but you're wrong. And in 2010, oh, I thought there was something on there. Oh, yes, 2010. Right, again, really important thing there. Apple released the iPad. Now, that was a game changer. When Apple released the iPad, nobody knew what it was going to be used for. I remember speaking to a Gartner analyst, Gartner who know everything about the future and how things are going to be used, and this was a Gartner analyst who specialised in looking into the future and in mobile. And he said to me, what is the point of it? It's not a phone, it's not a laptop, and it's got a crippled operating system. It will be gone in 2 years' time. Okay? And I remember saying to him at the time, just look round at your audience and just look how many people are using them. This will not be gone in 2 years' time. And it wasn't. And I actually think that iPad was a game changer. It was a game changer for us, and now all the different tablets. It's certainly in terms of how we got people to work digitally. People wouldn't take laptops to committee meetings, but they take laptops, they take iPads. There's not that barrier between you and everybody else. So as far as I'm concerned, that was a massive game changer. 2011, it was interesting because Android phones outsold Apple at that point. And in 2012, I told you I had to tell you things about me. I built my first doll's house. That's me. That's again, it's proud mother up there. I just built that. It's taken me bloody days to do it. I'm hopeless at DIY. And when you do doll's houses, the scale is a 12th, so it's 1 inch to a foot. So you're working with tiny, tiny little things. And it's now fully decorated, and I'm on my 3rd or 4th now, and it takes me longer to decorate my doll's house at Christmas than it does my house. That's how sad I am. And the other thing, what happened in 2012, I told you in 2006, if you've been paying attention, we developed our remote access service, which we call RATS. Well, we turned it off, look up there, in 2012, and people still complained. We thought we got rid of everybody on it. We've just been, you know, it's one of those services that you just leave. We turned it off, and our help desk had phone calls from retired professors saying, something's not working, I can't connect to the university anymore, and they were still using the dial-up service. So lessons from that, turn off things, just get rid of them. Turn them off, and people will shout. Don't wait till you get rid of everybody off it. Don't run things that you don't need to run. 2013, something must have happened in 2013. Oh yes, sorry, I know what happened in 2013. Look there, Process Improvement Unit, Rachel and her colleagues, we decided that really important in the university to look at efficiency, and we set up a Process Improvement Unit, which has gone from strength to strength. So that was just, I can't believe how long ago it was. It's 3 years ago. I think, you know, they've done such wonderful things since. 2014, we organised our first Tellfest. And the reason I wanted to put this up was that we have all our learning technologists in KICS. We are much more than an IT department, and that is one of our strengths, and it's the reason I think you can offer much better services. So please, don't think IT just has to be the plumbing and everything, you know, running the infrastructure. You will get much better services. You don't necessarily have to have them in your organisation, but everybody really, really has to work together. And in 2015, I'm nearly at the end now, we opened another fantastic learning space called the Diamond. That was interesting because I said the project that we'd done with the library, Information Commons, was 2 departments working together. We worked together perfectly. In this one, we had to work with an academic faculty. We had to work with engineering, and boy, was that difficult. Working with engineers, designing a building, gosh, the poor old architects and civil engineers didn't stand a chance. Anyway, that happened then. So, what's going to happen in the future? Well, who knows, I think it's fair to say. And you can look at all of these things that might come out, you know, artificial intelligence, smart machines, Internet of Things. And I'm not going to stand here and predict what's going to happen. I absolutely fully agree with what Sam said about the sort of students we need and the sort of the rounded individuals we need and the multiple skills that we need. But I'll tell you one thing that's for sure, is that we are going to have to really work together, and I'm going to come to that in a minute. So, I'm just going to tell you a few bits and pieces now to finish about me and some of the things I've learned. UCISA has been a big part of my life. It's a fantastic organisation. I've been vice chair, chair, and now I'm chair of the conference organising committee. I've got to meet some wonderful people. I've got a really big hug from John Lloyd, who is producer of QI and Blackadder and various other things. I made what's her name? Ruby Wax's iPhone work, so she called me a geek girl, which is the best compliment I've ever had ever. And Barry Cryer sat for 20 minutes talking to me with his hand on my leg, and then told me it didn't matter because he was over 80. And one of the best things that's ever happened to me at UCISA is earlier this year I got to meet one of my absolute heroes, who's John McCarthy, who was one of the Lebanon hostages, and he was a speaker at UCISA this year, and he is the most amazing man. If you want a lesson in humility, you talk to John McCarthy. The way he talks about his time as a hostage for 5 years, often in solitary confinement and often in the most horrendous conditions, is just amazing. So I was meeting a hero. Right, okay, a few other bits and pieces and things I've learnt. I told you at the beginning I didn't like chickens. Well, I love falcons. So, you know, not everything with feathers on is horrible. And that's me actually taking a harrisawk for a walk. So I love falcons. Somebody mentioned earlier about risk-taking. I am the biggest risk-taker there is when you need to take them. That's what's important. Don't be afraid to take risks. I love fireworks. If I'm setting off fireworks at home, I will count the 25 metres away and use a long lighter and make sure everybody's back. However, if I'm in Spain, which I was here, at a Corofoc, that's me there, and I'm going to stand underneath these fireworks and have dragons breathing sparks on my head, which is what you do in a Corofoc, and I'm going to wear a bandana and you wear cotton, because if you wear anything else it melts if you've got a spark on it, and you spend about 2 hours trudging around the streets of this tiny village just being rained on by fire. And you occasionally feel this, and it's the person behind you putting you out. Seriously, if you start to smoulder. So, you know, take risks where you need to, definitely. And be relaxed. I've developed a very relaxed attitude to parenting since I had grandchildren. Poor little Owen. Okay, so, some things I've learned. I talked about the cows. Make friends with everybody. When I first started my job in a big university admin building, the first people I made friends with were the porters, because I thought, who might I need to do things for me? Porters. I made friends with secretaries. I still, to this day, will say hello and smile and make friends with everybody. You will always need a good network of people around you. Things change, get over it, you know. Post-it notes did replace the paperclip. They're still here, though, aren't they? I think we use more now. Rachel is responsible for the entire, university use of post-it notes during process improvement events. Some of you may get the wicked analogy there, but sometimes you have to be the wicked witch. Sometimes you have to do things that people don't like, but you have to do them in a very, you have to be very focused and do them. You have to listen to people, but don't, be deterred. There are times when that broomstick really does have to come out of the cupboard. And some of you may know, when I was 40, I had a tattoo. It's a bit brave, tiny little one. When I was 50, I had another little tiny one. And when I was nearly 60, I thought, sod this. Let's just see if you can cover the entire back with tattoos. So, grow old disgracefully. I fully intend to carry on growing old disgracefully. Life is too short, it really is. A few weeks ago I did something, people run marathons and things for charities. You wouldn't catch me one. But I did 10 minutes of stand-up. I'd never done any stand-up comedy before, at Sheffield City Hall to a paying audience. And it was the scariest thing I have ever done in my life, okay? I was so nervous. I drank 3 gins before I walked on stage. And as I walked on, that's me actually just walking on, and you can clearly I've only got one dress. I've got more than one pair of shoes, though. And as I walked on, we had a professional comedian coaching us, and as I walked on, he said, "How are you?" And I said, "I am absolutely terrified." And he said, "You will only ever do this probably once in your life. Enjoy it. What is the point of doing something once in your life and not enjoying it? Just enjoy it." And I must admit, as I walked on and got hold of the microphone and smiled, I thought, I'm going to enjoy it now. What could possibly go wrong? And it was fantastic. And I have actually got the comedy routine on a memory stick. Can't play you any of it because it's far too early. Needs to be way past the watershed, and you definitely need to have had a drink. And the other thing, this bit, life is a product of your choices. I don't think this 19-year-old had any idea what she was going to do then. She really had not got a clue. She certainly didn't think she'd be standing here talking to you, having been 20 years an IT director. But I really would like to think that the reason I'm here is it's a product of decisions I've made and not that people have done to me. So, you need to take control. You make the decisions. This one I love, rules for the guidance of wise men and the obedience of fools. Rules are meant to be broken, they're meant to be flexible, they need to be adhered to when there's reasons for it, health and safety, things like that, but most of the time, you can break them. And I want to ask a favour of you now, because I'm going to try and play you a video, right? And I'm going to try and play it over the Wi-Fi network, which is not very good. So I'm going to ask, if you don't mind, if you've got a Wi-Fi connection open, if you could just close your iPads and just turn your phones off, it will give us a better chance to play it. We're not just 2 seconds. We're not sure whether it's going to work or not, but we're going to try it. And this is, because this is how I want to finish, this is going to come back to right where we started at the beginning of this afternoon, which is IT is about people, and IT is definitely a team sport. You have to work together. There has to be mutual respect, mutual trust, and absolute teamwork, both within the organisation, within the IT department and across the organisation. And for me, there's no better example of teamwork than what I hope I'm going to show. If it doesn't work, I'll explain the pictures. This is in Spain. These are castellers in Spain, or human castle builders, and they build human towers. And you can see on that one, how high. That's a tiny little girl. She's probably about 6 at the top there. That's how high they go. And they absolutely have to trust each other to do this. So hopefully we're going to try and play the video and I'm going to see if it works. And if you just play it till I tell you to stop, is that all right? You're going to try it there first. Do you want me to carry on talking for a bit then? Yeah. It's not playing at the moment, so. Right, come on. Who's got a Wi-Fi connection open that's stopping this playing? Because it worked earlier, but it worked when nobody was in the room. We're not having such fun with videos today, are we? I'll tell you a little bit about what, in case you can watch it. If you can't watch it, what I'll do is I'll just send the link round to everybody and you can watch it there. A group of people get together, a massive group of people, and they form the base. And you literally, I've done this, I've actually been part of it, you literally stand there like that as people climb over your shoulders. And if you're in the middle, here, there or there, you've no idea what's going on, apart from people are standing on your head. And they make these towers higher and higher and higher, and the very last person to go up, you can sort of see the little ones there are 5, 6 and 7-year-olds. And they've only, I love health and safety in Spain, it's wonderful. They've only just in the last couple of years made them wear helmets. They didn't used to. And everybody knows what they're doing. Everybody trusts everybody else. And again, they are taking some risks, but they're quite measured risks. And if the video did work, you would see them, A, building a tower, but then a tower collapsing, and they do collapse. And when they collapse onto everybody underneath them. And the reason this big group of people is here, it's not just to support the tower, it's to catch people as they fall, which I think is as important. Are we having any success over there? No? All right, I'll tell you what then, I'll stop because I've only got 2 minutes to go. What I might do is, if any of you want to see that video, let me know and I'll send you the link because it's fabulous. Anyway, that's it from me. I've now only got, let's have a look. You're not going to load, are you? We're not having much luck today. 29 days, 23 hours, 45 minutes and 21 seconds till I retire. So, happy to talk to any of you in the bar tonight if you want to. Thanks very much.